All right, you want to move on to Snow Queen?
Yeah, Snow Queen. So Snow Queen has one of the highest ceilings, I think, because she's a ranged character. She has a lot of iframes. It can play very safely for challenge runs and stuff. She does really well. I also have to call out the Frost Ray level 10, which is the most broken thing in the game. Was that last Friday or was that Saturday that you showed that off?
I think it was last Thursday.
Last
Yeah,
Thursday. Yeah.
yeah.
That was pretty inspiring right there. So, in case you didn't know, Ace took a Snow Queen run where he went Frost Ray. He got the upgrade. What's that? What's that one? Ice Beam.
Ice Beam, yeah.
You went Ice Beam and you got all the cooldown.
7 cooldowns, 12-second.
It finally did a little bit in the Baba Yaga fight when everyone else was distracting her, so she wasn't focusing him. But old problems. I guess not too much more needs to be said there. But in terms of her base kit and how Snow Queen works, she's very fast. She has some great attack synergies. Her power can actually pop off too, because I didn't really realize this, but I saw you pulled off a video not too long ago with a big power build with Snowball, right?
Yeah, and I think that build is currently my favorite way to play her. I will also have something to say on Frost, right? Later. I like that build. You kind of need a lot of power charges. Her power cooldown is 10 seconds. You definitely want some power cooldown, but I like it with Rupture to get vulnerable on a Shatter with Shattering Blast because your power can now trigger that Shatter and make things vulnerable. And with multiple charges, you can just spam this power over and over and trigger like Hailstorm and have all these waves of ice, have Snowball, which can roll down and hit enemies behind. And then Frost Surge, I know a lot of people actually didn't like this talent because it makes your power, like you have to channel it for longer to get this power hit off. But each charge level increases the damage dealt by 20% and the effective radius is larger. I think that's one of the biggest things because that makes your Hailstorm area larger, that makes the Shattering Blast area larger, and that makes the Snowball bigger, which is the best thing to look at in the game, just this huge snowball tumbling down and plowing over enemies. I love seeing that.
I have to say the VFX with Snow Queen, there no expense was spared. They did a killer job on making her stuff look cool. And the Hailstorm is a great example of this. Snowball is a great example of this. The Frost Surge is a great example of this. She's got a lot of really cool VFX. It's interesting to me, she has a lot of dash synergies in her build as well. I look at her kit and I think to myself, numbers wise, it's not that different from Rocket Science. Maybe that's something I'll try one of these days. Just go into a straight up Snow Queen dash build. But I'd say that in general, I feel her playstyle is a little bit frustrating for me because you want to go in and apply chilled so that you can get off your trait and do the damage associated with it. So a lot of the time you'll come in with your ice skating, you'll apply chilled on everyone, you'll pop your ice crown, then you'll try to apply chilled again with maybe frost blast, and then ice shards and ice lances to follow up at that point. The ideal combination of ability chaining for Snow Queen is so mechanically intense, and it's going to be like that loop is so iterative that it's a little bit annoying to me, but at the same time, it is really good. It just takes a lot of time and effort to get the mechanics down.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to take on her is Radiant Crown, which gives you one more trait charge because it's another iframe, but also because is it just the Ice Crown, where you basically shatter them. That does a lot of damage, stagger damage to enemies. So similar, I like to start with the defense, skate around, get everything chilled, have them hopefully group up and then hit them with the special, with the ice shards. You kind of get used to the timing of when is chilled going to fall off the enemy. So like use a couple attacks, then pop that. And then a lot of times when you pop that, if it's like a camp of pigs or something, that's going to stun all of them. They're all going to get knocked down. And then you can hit them with the power to re-chill them all and get the bonus damage back on your regular attack. And then again, another shatter after that if you have Radiant Crown for the most part kills. I really like that combo, but similar to Beowulf, I've been enjoying her less and less. I think she's one of the best characters for AoE camp clears, again, because of how much damage you can do to everyone at once. In my mind, I think besides like that power build, her attack build is pretty good, but I think she struggles with boss fights a lot more than other characters. I find my boss fights just going a lot longer. She doesn't have, in my mind, a lot of builds that can kind of like melt the boss or like one phase super consistently. And I feel like that translates to chapter 3 when you're going to fight like a camp of knights or something. And this might be from challenge runs, but I find myself whenever I play Snow Queen and I find a camp of knights, I feel like I'm there for so long trying to knock these guys down and actually do real damage to them.
I tend to agree. I see that she has range, she has a chilled effect that's going to slow enemies. Like, she has all this damage and she has all these buttons that synergize so well. And it used to be the case that she was pretty much I felt like she was the go-to when people started ramping up the difficulty level. But
Mhm.
like you're saying, I do feel like her single target can struggle sometimes. And I don't know exactly why that is. I think part of what happened to her was they changed Snowstorm. So that's the ultimate, the alternative ultimate. It's like an AoE effect that's going to apply chilled on everyone. It used to be 20 seconds, as I recall, and they changed it so it's only 10 seconds now. They also nerfed, what's the one that gives you more critical damage the more chilled enemies you have?
Oh, Cold Heart.
Cold Heart. Yeah, they nerfed Cold Heart so the numbers aren't as high per enemy. So I think the way to play her was to go in Snowstorm, get Cold Heart, crit chance everywhere. And that could kind of help with bosses because a lot of bosses do have a lot of different enemies in the area that lets you get a lot of extra crit chance. But because the duration's lower, because the base crit chance of Cold Heart is lower, it does really feel like she struggles in that single target.
I think Cold Heart is a talent that can definitely be buffed because most crit chance talents are 70%. This is 4% crit chance for each chilled enemy. Can stack 5 times. That goes up to 7. So you got 7 times 5. You have 35% crit chance on a talent when all the other crit chance talents are double that. I really think they could push these numbers up to try to make it close to even to that. I understand if they want to have it less, but I don't think it's even that necessary. The other thing they also did with Snowstorm is it used to cool down when you used it, which was a little busted because it was 20 seconds and it's only a 60-second ultimate. So you pop it, and by the time you had finished your Snowstorm, it felt like it was only a 40-second cooldown, which would make it the shortest ultimate in the game. I understand them switching that. There's certain ultimates that like don't do that though in the game still. Geppetto's Overclock, when you click that, your ultimate starts cooling down. It doesn't have to wait for them to all do the animation. But yeah, I do feel like she's also a character that has the take this one ultimate every single time. Beowulf had a case in my mind for taking the other ultimate. Pied Piper had a case for taking Unchained Melody. I don't really think there's a case for taking Frost Ray. Ice Beam makes your AoE ultimate now a single target ultimate that deals more damage to a single target. It's rare that you're going to have that opportunity in boss fights, especially Baba Yaga when you're playing solo. Royal Ray is ultimate triggers trait at the start and deals 8% damage for each shattered enemy. That's can also be tough to pull off. It's pretty much just like always take Snowstorm in every single build.
I think Snow Queen early on was because they had the initial design. I never played original Snow Queen, but they had the original design. Then she got reworked based on their feedback. Then I think she was one of the stronger characters in the game. And when they released, I can't remember if it was when they released Chapter 2 or right after they released Chapter 2. They also dialed back a lot of critical ability talents in the game. So Scarlet was affected, Beowulf was affected, Snow Queen was affected. I think the game has changed enough that we could reevaluate some of those because, okay, we have crit chance that comes from Horns of Plenty that you can get, and we have crit chance from Remorse now. And those sometimes really exceed those nerfed crit talents that used to be kind of the main thing because you didn't have a whole lot of sources of crit. And also scaling was different because we only had to play the first 2 chapters. Now I think in chapters 3 and 4, some of those characters really have a hard time staying relevant and feeling like they justify the pick. I would like to see a little bit of a change there to make some of these characters and some of these things that used to be good a little bit more pickable, a little bit more interesting.
I still think she has a really good place in co-op though. I don't have a lot of people in streams actually play Snow Queen, but Frost Queen, making chilled effects slow enemies by an additional duration and leaving that chill on the ground so you can use your shatters and re-chill enemies. It is really, really helpful in co-op, especially if you're playing with characters like Carmilla that are dependent on use this power and sit back, or Melusine, who's pretty stagnant. Having all these enemies just that much slower in co-op is very, very beneficial.
And she does have a shield in her kit. She has Ice Shield, and Shield's interesting. We haven't really talked about it a ton in the game, but they did buff Shield so that it scales at 15% per level instead of 10% per level. So whenever you see a Shield talent, I would say right now, give it a little bit more benefit of the doubt than you may have in the past. And that's going to be a better thing in co-op than in solo, but it's interesting. And I guess actually she has more than one because she also has Protective Crown. So they really want you to build a lot of shield with Snow Queen.
Yeah, I think Ice Shield is the better shield on her because it triggers on your defense, and you can trigger that if you're playing solo. You can trigger that on yourself every time you use your defense, and you could also cancel her defense. Her defense has a 8-second cooldown. You can press defense, and then say you only have one enemy to fight and chill. Press defense and skate over them, and instantly press defense again, and it's on a 2-second cooldown. And you can proc that shield on you and keep it up pretty much all the time. And your defense is one of your iframes. It feels like a tighter iframe than her trait iframe, but if you need to dodge an attack, you can just spam defense, dodge the attack, and then have it on cooldown again. So I think that is one of her biggest strengths, is pretty much always having her iframes available to her.
That's also one of the frustrating things, is that when you die, you see that you still had a cooldown that you could have survived with. So maybe it's a buff for the character's kit. It's also a nerf psychologically for you if you mess up. How do you feel about the starting talents? We kind of skipped around in this one a little bit.
I did one of the challenge runs on Ice Clone, and I've already liked Ice Clone, but I think Ice Clone is really good, especially when you're doing what I just talked about, where you spam your defense and cancel it, because you can get a lot of these up. If you position these right, enemies are just attacking these. You can also say like a ghost is coming up to scream at you. You can just set one of these up right before they do that and have enemies chilled all the time. It's a really fun game of, hey, let me bait you with this attack right before you're about to do like a big slam or something. I really, really like that talent. I think it's very abusable. Rupture for vulnerable is cool if you're playing co-op without a Pied Piper. This is pretty good vulnerable because she can chill so many enemies at once. I already mentioned Frost Queen a little bit. I still think it has its place in solo. And then they recently nerfed dual lances. It used to always be double damage. You get another lance, and you used to upgrade the range to make the range better. Now the range is set at a 45% reduced range, and you upgrade the dual lance attack to go up to what it was. I think it's still fine. After playing around like a whole run with it, I think dual lances is still one of her better builds.
Yeah, and Snow Queen does have a lot of fun things going on in the attack department. You go windy lances, which isn't always the best pick. It's probably not like your first pick, but it's so cool, honestly, to send the windy lances out everywhere when you're in the fight. You have lance burst, so requires a little bit of extra thinking about which way you're pointed, but obviously it's going to give you more attack value. And then you also have strafe, and that's a lot of fun. You'll go into your defense and you'll just be spamming attacks everywhere. It's funny because it's actually kind of thematically similar to Unchained Melody, but it's so much more fun. It's like
And it's better. It's so much better.
It's so much better.
Take it with dual lances. It's still like dual lances with all these things is super worth it. She also has ice cores, which you hit your enemies with your power, and then your special now shoots out an attack, which does benefit from dual lances as well. So she can benefit her defense, special, and trait with attacks. And if you're taking Ace of Spades, you're scaling all of those things, which I think is really cool.
I think I really need to play Snow Queen more to have a really good grasp on her, but I'm having a hard time getting into her. I'm having a hard time being excited about checking her out. There's someone who commented on one of my videos that they just can't stand Snow Queen because she just insults them the whole time they play. And I don't think that's why I don't enjoy her, but maybe it is. Maybe that's like psychologically, I'm just protecting myself.
Could be the case. Could be the case. She only compliments me. I don't know what's going on.
Oh my goodness, no. So yesterday I got exposed for being the only one who thinks that Piper's music sounds good. And now I'm learning that like Snow Queen is only mean to me. So
yeah, they might have given you different game audio. I'm not sure what happened.